And today, I want to tell you a few good stories that I wrote down in relation to the holiday that's coming up, Shavuot. So, some interesting ideas about the Torah and Judaism as a whole, and how if we have a little more pride in ourselves, that we are Jewish, we would be able to hear all the noise that's going on in the world, even now, outside, and just have real inner confidence that I know that I am doing the right thing, no matter how much they tell me. Like I said before on Shabbat, if you tell me I'm a table 1,000 times, I'm not going to be a table. I know who I am. I'm not a table. So we are in a world where they're telling us words of hate to the Jewish people, and they are claiming things that are not true. But if you have the real confidence as a Jew for who you are, and what does that mean to have Jewish confidence, you will know that no matter what they throw at me, I know who I am. Okay, so I'm going to talk about some of the ideas and the amazing things that we can learn from how Judaism got the Torah, how we got the Torah, and how the Jewish story came to be. So we know that the Torah was given to us where? Mount Sinai in the desert. So what does the desert teach me? So the Midrash tells me something very interesting. The desert teaches me a place of no distractions. It was just clear, focus. There's nothing. Can you imagine? Empty, bare land, and it's just us and Hashem, right? That's the story of the Jewish people. So what does that tell me? What does that tell you? That the way to connect in Judaism is to really make sure that the focus is not about anything else besides for Hashem. And what I mean by that is very important. It sounds interesting, but it's very important. What I mean by this is I should eat. I need to work out. I need to be healthy. I need to do all the things I do in my life. I need to work. But why? And we sometimes lose focus. We lose focus, meaning I need to work, and then I forget what it means to do all the other things that are important and not make it too important, the fact that I need to work. I need to also build a family. I need to have time for dating. I need to be a father. I need to be a mother, whatever it is that I need to do. So in Judaism, we have to treat Judaism like a desert, which means zero distractions. It's only for the right reason, which is for God. So when I work out, it's never, as a Jew, to look, I know, whatever, I should be. But as a Jew, when I work out, it's never so that I should be just looking cool so people will like me more. That's just narcissistic, right? What I do as a Jew is so that I can be a better servant of Hashem. So even if I don't have a six-pack, right? Even if I don't have the perfect body, I can convince myself that doesn't matter. Because really why I'm doing it is so that I can serve Hashem better, okay? I'm only doing it so I should be healthy. The focus isn't for me to have, there's no value in Judaism. There's a value in Judaism to be healthy and to work out every day. Maimonides says you have to work out every day. There is no value in Judaism to look big and have a lot of muscle and to be heavy. Actually, it says, Marbe basar, marbe rima. The more flesh you have, well, the more it's going to go back to earth eventually. Like what happens to the flesh when we die? Sorry for being so, changing the mood. But what happens to the flesh when we leave? It goes back to worms, to earth. So the more flesh you build, what is it for? For the worms. So, think about that for a minute. My point is that your focus should never be, I should look good so that people will like me more. I should look good so I can get more. Right? It's like someone told me recently. I told him, you should come more to Ishlit. No, when? Taco Tuesday, Shabbat, weekends I can't do. Weekends are for the girls. I said, what does that mean? So he says to me, we have some good, I should have said we have good girls in our place too, but he meant, other stuff. So I said, you only need one. What do you mean, Rabbi? Be fruitful and many. Be fruitful, multiply. You missed the point. Anyway, not for our dating series. But the point is that everything you do, also your work, it's never just to accumulate money. Don't get distracted by the fact that I'm here to just make money. That shouldn't be your focus. And I'm going to tell you a story about this. Unbelievable. But the focus should always be like I'm in the desert, which is simply for the right purpose. I'm only here for a certain amount of time, and my goal is never to be distracted. Just like when you're in the desert, you're not distracted, and you know what your goal is. Okay? To fulfill your purpose in this world, and your purpose isn't to have big muscles. It isn't to have a six-pack. It isn't, your purpose shouldn't be any of those. It is like being in the desert where your purpose is just for its goal. Wow. Okay. I'm saying wow to all of you, by the way. Okay. So that's one thing we learn from a desert. Another thing is that the desert is free. Free. It's free. It doesn't cost. It's not a land, it's not an event, it's not a venue. It doesn't cost. Did you know that according to Judaism, Taco Tuesday has to be free? If I'm going to teach Torah, it has to be free. It's not free for me, but yeah. But Taco Tuesday and Torah teaching actually has to be free. So much so that Maimonides says if there's no Jewish education in a place, you have to either leave it or not let it, not be there. This is something that's ridiculous. You have to have a place of education. And not only that, the educators can only get money for schar amalah, which means the pay that they could have got if they would have taken a normal job. So like a basic minimum wage. They shouldn't really take a tremendous wage. Go figure why all these schools cost so much in Jewish schools. That's another discussion. But really, according to Judaism, there's one thing that's really free. And that's education. And it should always be really free. And that's something which is fascinating. If you look at the Jewish people, we have free education. All these organizations are opening up their house and events. Free food, that's for sure. But they also give you free education. Some of it you might not like so much, but some of it you actually may like. So that's free. It's an amazing thing. Where do you get such a people where being educated is free? Okay, so it's free, and listen to this, and I want to get into this. This is fascinating. It was in the desert. Why the desert and not the land of Israel? The Midrash asked this question. Wouldn't it be cool if we got the Torah in Israel? Right? Then the free Palestine, you beat that. The whole thing. We got the Torah in Israel. And where's the Quran from? Forget the fact that the Quran in Surah 520 says clearly that the land of Israel belongs to the Jews. Clearly. Like Moses got the land for the Jewish people in the land. I don't know exactly word for word, but it's very clear. In the Quran. Never mind. Go figure. They believe in all our prophets. Moses, they should respect. Joseph. For some reason, Joseph's burial site in Shechem is desecrated every once in a while, even though it's something which is a profit for them. Okay. Anyway. Okay, so let's just... okay, I'm sorry if I offended anyone. But my point is, it was in the desert. Why the desert? Wouldn't it be cooler if it was in Israel? Listen to this. Do you know what the rabbis say? Because then everyone will say, oh, it belongs to my tribe only. And that's not Judaism. Judaism says anyone can come and take it. Let me tell you something interesting. The Torah that talks about us getting the Torah portion of us, the story where we actually get the Torah, is called Yitro, Jethro. And it's about the father-in-law of Moses who converted to Judaism. The whole story is about the Jews getting Torah, right? But it's actually about a convert who's like the focus of the story. David HaMelech, David the king, who was the instigator, was the one that helped build the first temple. His son was Solomon. Who did he come from? Does anyone know? Ruth. Who was Ruth? His grandmother was Ruth. Who was she? She was a Moabite. a Moabiyah. She was the daughter of a great king of Moab. And she converted to Judaism. She followed Naomi, went back to Israel and married Boaz, and she converted to Judaism. Do you understand that David, the king of the Jewish people, is the grandchild? Whenever you say a Jewish idea, you go like this. Do you understand that he's the grandchild of a convert? That's like our king. That's amazing. Okay, so that goes, by the way, to anyone who makes the claim that we don't accept converts as much or whatever. No, it's not true. Now, there's another discussion of if someone really converts. Like Judaism, we converted when we got the Torah. We had to convert. We went through the Dead Sea. That's like a mikvah. And we accepted the Torah. You have to accept the values. If you say, I'm culturally Jewish and I accept the culture, then you don't need to convert for that. So in Judaism, there is an idea of conversion. But once there is a conversion, Rabbi Akiva. Did you know that Rabbi Akiva was a descendant of one of the greatest destroyers of the Jewish people? His name was Sisera. His father was Yosef, who was a convert and came from the lineage of one of the greatest haters of the Jewish people in history. And one of our greatest rabbis was Rabbi Akiva, the child of a convert. Isn't it amazing? And so on. You don't have to go further than even now. Did you know that Amar Stoudemire, have you heard of him? Yeah. An NBA star? You should check him out. He became an Orthodox Jew. He's 7 foot at least. And he lives in Jerusalem. And he's married. And he found his wife. And they're both living happily ever after as a religious Jew. With a hat and everything. You wouldn't believe it. And he was an NBA star. I'm telling you, it's so crazy. Hello. It's so crazy you have to believe it. Search Amar Stoudemire. In 2016, I think it was when he left. Unbelievable. Till today, there are some amazing people that converted to Judaism. I want to tell you something else. This is an interesting statement in Brachot, in the Gemara in Brachot, which says that the reason why we all got sent to exile is to bring converts back. Now, forget it, the fact that we push away converts, right? Because we want people to be sincere. Judaism is about quality, not about quantity. But definitely, the Talmud very clearly says we went spread around the world to bring back converts. Not the way that you may think, where we walk around with Talmud, I've never done this, and knock on people's doors. Right? We don't do that. But we do, convert to Moses or die, or stuff like that. We don't do that, but we do help people convert when they really want to, and it's more about by example than anything else. I want to tell you something amazing. Listen to this. Okay, so that's what I'm telling you. We got the Torah on the desert to tell me that the land doesn't belong to anyone, because if it was in the land of Israel, we'll say, oh, it's only for our tribe, not for anyone else. Not true. Anyone can convert to Judaism. So I want to tell you an amazing story with Rabbi Wine. That's something that happened not too long ago. He wrote a book called Vintage Wine. Okay, that's his name. Wine, play on words, whatever. So he went, he was a rabbi in America, and he's known as the historian. I mean, he wrote a lot of books on history, on Jewish history, and he's phenomenal. If you go online, you see some of his talks, unbelievable. And Rabbi Wine went to Jerusalem for a conference or whatever, and he went to a very important synagogue in Jerusalem. And in that synagogue, it was an old shul, so everyone sits opposite each other. There are benches, and everyone sits opposite each other. He sits down, older man, Rabbi Berwine, and in front of him, he sees a tall, blonde, blue-eyed man walk in. And he's like, that guy's from the special race, and then also with him are 3 kids, and they are super well-behaved. They open the book, they're young. They open the book, they're praying, not one word. And he's like, wow, this is unbelievable. The local rabbi of the shul comes up to him and tells him, you have to meet this man. He's got an unbelievable, I know that you're a historian and you're a well-known rabbi. You have to meet him. And he says, of course, I would love to hear his story. So he brings this man over. He says his name's Abraham. He changed his name. He's now called Avraham. What's his story? Listen to this. He's from Germany. He's now a microbiologist in Israel. And he, at the end of the Holocaust, grew up in a lie. He didn't know that his father worked with the German Nazis, but he knew somewhat his father was involved, but not to the extent. And his father was part of the elite SS killing machine called the Totenkopf, which means the death with your head or something like that. Kopf is a head, and something like that. And eventually, he was a murderous man, his own father. And he didn't know about it growing up because his father kept it quiet. But eventually he got exposed. He lived in Germany, West Germany. He got exposed and he was in prison for 10 years. And whilst he was in prison, his son, as a younger boy, starts inquiring who was his father and finds out how many Jews his own very own father kills. And he's devastated by it. And he slowly learns more and more about the Holocaust. And as time goes on, when we're talking about not long after the Holocaust, as time goes on, more stories are coming out. Benny? More stories are coming out. You get what I'm saying? He just went to interview his grandma. So more stories are coming out about the Holocaust, and it's unbelievable. So as he hears more stories, he learns more and more, and he can't believe that that's who his family is and his blood is. And he has this urge to go to Israel and learn. And he goes there. He works at a kibbutz, and eventually he's a very smart man. This Abraham with his 3 kids now, and he gets a scholarship at the University of Tel Aviv and becomes a microbiologist, never leaves Israel, and gets involved whilst he's there, gets involved with Judaism, and now is a religious Jew living in Jerusalem and a microbiologist. And he tells him that that's my story. But it doesn't end there. My father hit 90 years old not long ago, and he didn't know how far I went with my Judaism, that I even converted and everything. And at the age of 90, I knew that my father was dying, and I wasn't sure if I want to go back to Germany to see him. Let him be. I was so ashamed of who my father was. I didn't want to even see him, especially now that I have 3 kids. I don't want my kids to meet their grandfather. And he's arguing with his wife. His wife was also German who converted. And he argues with his wife. And he decides it's a payback. He's going to go. And he goes with his kippah and his children. His 3 boys have peyot. And he goes with their peyot. And they go into the hospital where his father is in Darmstadt. I think that's how you pronounce it. Darmstadt or whatever. I don't care because I'll never go there. And he goes into the hospital and he sees his father, and his father is shocked. His son and he's got 3 grandkids that are Jewish. He can't get over it. I think that's what made him die, but whatever. And he says to his father, I'm Jewish, and we believe, to his father, I converted, it tells his story, we believe that everything that we do has a reason. And if I manage to convert, there must be something that you did that made you have 3 grandchildren that are now Jewish. What did you do? Can you think of anything that you did that makes you have 3 grandchildren that you're Jewish? And he says, you know what? I don't know, but maybe there was a time at the end, towards the end of the Holocaust, where I saw in a church, I found out that there were 3 Jewish kids being fostered, looked after there. And I saw them. And they were running around and scrambling, and I just couldn't do it. And I let them go. So his son, this man, says to his father, well, if you would have saved another kid, maybe you would have 4 grandchildren. And that's how he departed from his father. Amazing story. So Beryl Wine says this story in his book, Vintage Wine. Anyway, my point is that Judaism has a funny way of all of those that hate us. It comes right back into their face. And we are still here, and they are gone. Which leads to the next point. Did you know that on the mountain of Sinai, long before, whilst the Jews were slaves in Egypt, who was there? Who went to that mountain first? Does anyone know? No? Moses. Moses went there, and he ran away. Remember, because Pharaoh tried to kill Moses. He escaped. And he ran away to a place called Midian. And on the way, he stops at Mount Sinai, and he sees a small little tree, a sneh, which sounds like Sinai. Sneh, Sinai, which is why Sinai is called Sinai. Another reason is because of this small burning tree or bush. And he sees it, and it's not consumed. There's a fire, but it's not getting burnt. Do you know what that represents? What do you think that represents? Moshe sees a fire, eish lit. He sees an eish lit, and he sees that the fire is not consuming the tree. What does that represent? The Jewish people will never get burned. No matter what? We will never be destroyed for good. We are always here to stay. So much so, listen to this. I don't know if you've ever seen a rock, and you can search this on Amazon. You can actually pay $200 ridiculous for a piece of rock from Mount Sinai. But listen to this. Did you know, I have a picture of it. This is what a rock of Mount Sinai looks like. And it actually has the figure of like a small little tree on it. And no matter how much you cut the piece of rock, I saw it with my own eyes. When I was in yeshiva in Israel, I had a whole bunch of friends that went to Sinai. They shouldn't have, because they told them not to, but they went anyway. It was during a little friction at the time. And they went anyway, and they came back. They brought a souvenir, a rock from Mount Sinai. Did you know that this rock from Mount Sinai has the figure of a tree, like a bush on it? I'll show you if you come after. And no matter how much you cut it, inside you'll still see that figure in it. And this is a statement, not by us, but by a book written in the 14th century by Rabbi Moses of Narbonne. And it's a commentary on Moreh Nevuchim, the guide to the perplexed of Maimonides. He says like this: the stones found at Sinai have the image of the thorn bush of the sneh on it. And that's why it's called Sinai. It's a godly image. I have split the rock, he says about himself, in half and found the image of the thorn bush on either side. I broke one half into pieces, and the thorn was again found on both sides, on both parts. And this is true till today. You can actually find this on Amazon. A little sign from Hashem saying, listen, they're going to try and take you. You know that story of the burning tree? It's not just an old story of 3,000 years ago. That story is still going on, and that tree can never be burned. Mount Sinai has a rock. It's basically a rock. And that rock has a little sign on it that the bush can never come out. You can never take away the tree, the thorn of within the rock. It's unbelievable. You cut it no matter how many times, you will always see the tree inside the rock. Isn't that amazing? A little sign for us. Okay. He calls that a godly sign from Mount Sinai. Okay. So another thing is that the mountain was very, very small, short. Okay. What does that teach you? That before you get Judaism, you have to be humble. Okay? In order, what's the first thing we say in the morning? Modeh ani. What does that represent? I admit. I thank you, but I admit. How do you have gratitude? What does Jew mean to say thank you? What does gratitude mean? To be humble. What does it take for a marriage to work? Does anyone know? I basically said, what? Gratitude. Appreciation. Someone told me what one word. Do you know what it is? Love. Compromising. Love is going to happen as an outcome, right? Love will be the outcome of what? Compromising. Compromising, humility. It takes a lot to literally work and live with somebody for the rest of your life and come one with them. That's how you achieve love. And how do you do that? By compromising. You lower yourself, you humble yourself in order to accept somebody in your life. So, in order to accept Judaism, it had to be on a small mountain to teach me this great lesson. I want to tell you that Judaism says we should be in the middle ground with everything besides for when it comes to two things. One is anger. Don't be in the middle with anger. Get rid of it. Try and get rid of it completely. It's the worst thing that you can do to yourself. Many other traits, you can be in the middle. But with anger, really minimalize it. There should be basically zero reason to be angry. And the other thing is humility. Me'od, me'od, havei shefal ruach. be very, very low in your spirit. Meaning, not low in your excitement with life, but low in your pride, arrogance. Don't have any arrogance. Get rid of it. Do you know why it says? Because this is in Pirkei Avot. Tikvat enosh rima. The end of you is going to be in the ground, in worms. What are you proud of? Your stupid car? Your car? It's just going to disintegrate over time. You can paint it again. Just it peels. Look at my car. It's peeling. Right? That's it. You're proud of your car? It's peeling. So that's because I smashed it 1,000 times. But whatever. That's enough. It says that the key to the world to come is humility. That's the entry key. You want to know the key after we die? Like what key you're going to hold? That's like, whoa, that's a key, dude. That's your humility key. Okay? And it's kind of counterproductive. You think, I need to make a noise of myself, but the opposite. The more humble you are, the greater. Okay? So it says, look at nowadays. We're living in a time of social media where I have to promote myself, be excited about myself, show off myself, get more likes. Forget it. Although it's important Eish Lit should have likes, Noah. But outside of that, right, besides for me, everyone else should not look for likes. I'll tell you actually something that happened to me recently. I was on a flight with a rabbi, coming back from a wedding. And I'll even say his name, Rabbi Laniado from Shuva, Israel. He's a really special man, very humble. So he was waiting for his brother on another flight. So he said he's coming. So we said, okay, we were all getting a ride with one of the guys that was with us also on the flight. And so he said, we'll get the car and we'll come back to you. So we'll pick you up. So I knew he's a very important rabbi. He's a special man. I'm going to sit in the back. And I'm going to leave the front seat for him, obviously. So he wouldn't have it. Eventually we came to the airport and we stopped for him to pick him up, and he opens the door. I don't know what he's doing. He's trying to yank me out of the car. He wouldn't even speak to me. Get out of the car. Trying to put me in the front. That's what it means. Ma'od hafei shafal ruach. He didn't win. I stayed in the back, and that's because he really is a special man. Next point. I wanted to tell you. This is an interesting one. Did you know that Mount Sinai is called the Mountain of Destruction? Oh, that sounds bad. It's called Har Chorev, also in the Talmud. Why? What is it destroying?
The ego.
Okay, good. Yes, very good. The Talmud in Shabbat says it was the start to the destruction of idol worship. When I say idol worship, we mean that you start legitimizing things because you say, oh, no one's watching, so now I can do whatever I want because I'm in my own space. The idea of monotheism is there's no escape. There really is no escape. The creator of everything is involved in all of us. And every action I do is accounted for. Okay, so it really destroyed idol worship. What's the idol worship of today? Okay, cell phones, social media. Okay, we bash social media too much. It's like the only reason why everyone comes to my house, you know? Okay, so let me tell you what's the idol worship of today? I think it's escapism. It's indulgence. It's not necessarily the social media. What did my phone do wrong? It's me spending too much time on my social media. I already said last time, an hour a day for an entire year is how many days? You remember? 30 days. An hour a day for 365, an hour for 365 days. It's 365 hours, it comes out to 30 days. It's pretty scary. Now, I'm talking about the living hours that we have. We eat, we have to sleep, we have to also work. So how much real time do we have? And in that spare time, we use 30 days of it. It's quite a scary thought. Okay, what? Probably more. I'm just saying an hour. I don't know, whatever. I don't want to see my phone and see how many hours I've been on my phone today. Sometimes I don't want to see it. Okay, so what was I saying? That it means to destroy. What does it destroy? All escapism. Someone told me like this. Shabbat for me doesn't work. Because right now I'm single and I'll do more Shabbat when I have a family. And so on and so. Judaism is not easy single, and I agree. It's not easy. I'm not arguing. It's not easy. It's much easier when you have a family and you have an amazing wife and kids and a family or a husband and kids, and you're living a lifestyle which is like Shabbat anyway. Like, why would you not want that for your kids? It makes sense. So a lot of people tell me, I'll do more Shabbat when I get married. It's going to be easier for me later on. But right now, it's not so easy. I want to tell you a little secret that Judaism, whilst it's not always easy, it's not, but everything we do that's Jewish is pushing us closer and closer in the direction of reaching your life goals. In an environment where you are doing Shabbat more, where you're making sure that you're not just dating anyone and everyone just for the fun of it, but you're actually looking for marriage, and you really believe that promiscuity is not a good thing. And I'm talking for men as well. I don't know, for some reason, yeah, I'm talking about everybody. So I really believe that real love is something that's important. Well, Shabbat and all of Jewish lifestyle is pushing you in that direction. Literally, it pushes you. It's pain. It's like birth pangs. But it's like pushing a person in the right direction. It pushes you to be around people. It pushes you to communicate. It pushes you to be part of a community. It literally slowly directs you into the right direction with your goals of life. And many times, avoiding Jewish lifestyle pushes you further and further away, more and more escape and distraction from the goals of life. Okay, I know you don't have to agree with me, but that's what I believe idol worship is when it distracts me from God, from my purpose, from my goal. That's idol worship. It's like there's another God, whatever it is, may it be whatever, job, working all 7 days, be fruitful and multiply on the weekends, or whatever, right? Like the other guy told me. Okay, that kind of stuff. So the more Jewish you are, the more you're pushed in the direction of actually working towards building a family and having the right goals in life. It might not be easy, but you're pushing yourself in the right direction. And who doesn't want to do that? Okay. Did you know, finally, 2 more points. Did you know that Mount Sinai has how much holiness to it? How much do we value Sinai? I once made a video about Egypt. And I said, why is Judaism so obsessed with Egypt? Not obsessed with living there. Oh my gosh, the trolls. It was ridiculous. I had to delete the video. It's like hundreds of messages. Don't ever come to our country. Don't ever try and take Egypt. Don't try and colonize Egypt. Dude, I don't want your stinky Egypt. Take it. All I want is Israel, the land that we deserve, that we own. I don't need your Egypt. I don't need anything else. We need our land that we actually are part of, that our history is part of. Why should I agree that everybody else has history there and deny the fact that I have history there? Why? There's no Jewish archaeology there? Zero? Oh, you're not the same Jews as they were 1,000 years ago. Why? Where's your statement coming from? Why do you have the right to make these statements and I have to agree with you? It's devastating when you see a Jew arguing in public with some pro-Palestinian and literally agreeing that, yes, we are colonizers. We are stealing land. How? Why? Why is their history fine and our history zero, worthless? We must be proud of who we are. Okay, I just went on a rant. But anyway, that's the idea that the mountain is actually not holy at all. And as soon as they got the Torah, God says, what are you staying here for? You've been on this mountain for too long. Now turn and move. Go. Do you get the message? The message is, it's not about a place. It's about here. The place is in here. Judaism's in here. Don't think of it as a mountain. It's somewhere far away in Sinai. That place has zero holiness to us. Zero. It's fascinating. To me, that's like a... Mount Sinai, where we got the Torah, and we celebrate every year Shavuot, which we're doing on Tuesday, by the way, has zero holiness to it. Isn't that mind-blowing? Okay. Anyway, I do want to tell you something amazing. So we are approaching the holiday of Shavuot, which is the holiday of Mount Sinai, Torah, not Mount Sinai, of getting the Torah. And there's a lot to learn from it. There are 2 holidays celebrating Torah. Does anyone know what they are? Victory. Simchat Torah and And Shavuot. Why do we have two? Two holidays to celebrate the same thing?
It's that important.
Huh?
It's that important.
It is important. Okay, that's a good one. It's important you do it twice. One is celebrating
When we first got the Torah,
when we got it,
and one is celebrating the end of it.
right, studying it.
Studying.
Studying the wisdom that's in it, the gift that is in it. Okay, so throughout the year, if every single week someone goes to synagogue on Shabbat, at the end of the year, you finish the entire Torah, every year. By the time you're 50, you did it 50 times, plus you do it 2 times at home. We're meant to do it twice as well at home, so that means you've done it 3 times, that's 150 times by the time you're 50. Okay, maybe you didn't do it the first 10 years, whatever. But it's an amazing thing that the Jewish people have always been studying the Torah at least twice a week. It's amazing. By the time you go through lifetime, there's a person here that studied this book literally every single week, and it's come out to many, many times. So this holiday is about how we received it, what it is we got, but we don't know what it is. The holiday of Shavuot is what's in it. We're celebrating what's in it. So the Ben Ish Chai, a great rabbi of the 19th century, says like this amazing story. He says, do you know what it's like? It's like this. It's like a king who has a daughter, and she's looking for a husband. And she's looking and looking and looking, but every guy is an idiot. Right? So what? That's what they all say. So every guy's in, there's no normal guys. So she tells her dad, the king, there's no normal guys. And what happens? Why? Because every guy she goes out with is wealthy, successful, shows off his car, and she's not interested. She's like, I can get any of that better. None of that excites me. So she can't stand all the people she meets. And what does she do? No, she doesn't. She tells her father, good. So she tells her father, I don't want to die alone. Please, Dad, get me someone who's not influential, not from the higher end class. Get me someone else. Find someone else. I don't need the best. I need someone simple. So they hear about this faraway place where there's this man who's an amazing young man. He's handsome and he's cool, and he looks after sheep, and he's a farmer. Right? That's cool, right? So he's a farmer, and he's like, this is the most amazing guy. Everyone talks about him. He looks after his animals so nicely, and she's like, yes, that's the guy I want. Wow, coolest guy ever. He's not even on J-Swipe. So Ben Ish Chai doesn't say this part. Basically, the king sends his messengers to go and get him. And he gets schlepped into the king's palace, and he says, you need to marry my daughter. The king says to this man, you should marry my daughter. What can I do? The king of the entire country is asking me to marry. What can I do? I can't argue with him. So he says, okay, maybe I could see her a little bit. He sees her, wow, very, very attractive. Okay, I'll do it. I can't say no to the king. So he gets married. And they make a huge festival. The greatest wedding. And what's he thinking in his head? What the heck am I doing? Who is this person? Why would he want me to be his son-in-law? For sure, she is crazy. Okay, she looks nice, but she's probably crazy. So he decides that that's what's the case. That's the case. Like, there's no way. So he does the marriage. He's like, my life's over. He gets married to this lady, but then he sees that she's actually normal. He sees she's normal. She's got a brain on her head, and she's normal, and she's healthy, and she actually cares for him, and she loves him, and she's full of eagerness to make a relationship and to make it work or whatever she's like, wow. He is like, wow, this is an amazing. He decides at some point, he's so amazed by what he's got. He's got the daughter of the king, and she's amazing, and she's normal. She has no issues. He goes back to the king, and he says, I need to speak to you. He says, what's going on? Maybe there's something wrong. He says to the king, I want to make another celebration. I need to make another celebration. It's so brilliant. When I first had the wedding, I didn't know what I'm getting. But now I know what I've got. I need to make another celebration. Now I'm going to be happy. Can we do? The king's amazed. Wow, that's the most beautiful idea. And he pulls off another wedding. That's what Shavuot is, and that's what Simchat Torah. Shavuot is we don't even know what we're getting. We know that it's coming from the King of the universe. We don't know what it is. But look how amazing Judaism really is. Look how amazing our people are. Look how amazing we are. A small 13 million, 15 million people, and what an impact we have on the world. Whether you believe in God or not, you have to tell me that it doesn't make sense that we make 25% of the Nobel Prizes. What are we, just some, whatever these conspiracy theorists are saying about us, that they've chipped our brain and we control the world? Like, what is it? Unless maybe God did give us something special, and we are a special people, and you know what? We are. We are a lineage of history, of wisdom, of good guidance, of love, everything that everyone else wants and is jealous of, which is why they're after us. That's it. Okay? So that's the story of the Jewish people. That's why we celebrate again the second time. The first time we celebrate because we got it, but the second time, that's Shavuot. And then we celebrate a second time because now we know how awesome it is. That's Simchat Torah. That's why we go wild on Simchat Torah way more than we do on Shavuot. Anyway, my point is that I want to finish off with a story because it's about Jewish pride, which is what I said. I want to tell you a story. This is insane. Okay, you ready for this story? This story was brought to me by my daughter. She came home with a new book, and it's a book written by Rabbi Tzvi Nakar, and he has 102 stories that changed people's lives. Why 102? I don't know, maybe someone can tell me. But he says like this, in there is a story of a man who was 65 years old, he's 65 currently, a year or 2 years ago, and he tells the story about himself 30 years ago. 30 years, he's 65 now, when he was 30 years old, 35 or whatever years old, he was living in Israel, he had 3 kids, and he couldn't afford life. And he couldn't bear it anymore. So he decided to take on another job. And taking another job, we're talking about in the 90s, taking on another, or the late 80s, 1980, late 1980s, he's taking on another job, he's barely home. And it turned from a father with 3 kids and a wife to a wife and 3 kids alone, and him barely being home. Every day he comes back late, he's tired, he's trying to make ends meet, and his wife is telling him, this is not feasible. We can't do this. And every time he comes home and he hears this comment, it bothers him more. It's like, I'm not doing enough to try and make money. Like, why are you doing this to me? I'm going to work. And she keeps saying, like, our kids are getting older. You're not home. You're just always working. And it starts to de-escalate. Every day another comment until at some point he says, okay, I'm done. I'm not happy here. She says, well, you don't have to stay. And he goes into his room, he takes his case, fills it with some stuff, and he's out. And everything de-escalates from there. Lawyers, he starts working towards getting a get, and then he makes an argument. She doesn't appreciate what I do. She makes the argument, he's never home. He's married to his job. He could easily get another job by this point. And he's not home until what happens is, as this argument, they didn't get the get, the Gulf War breaks out in 1991. And Iraq took Kuwait to get more oil because they owed money because of their war that they've been fighting against Iran. I don't know if you know the story of the Gulf War, but it's pretty fascinating. Everyone was against Iraq, all the Arab countries, and Saddam Hussein said, he was the head of Iraq at the time. May he rest in pieces. Saddam Hussein said, I know all the Arab countries are against me. I know how to get them on my side. He threatens the world and the UN, the US, England. There was a real big coalition of armies that said, we're going to fight Iraq for doing this. They should not take Kuwait to get oil. And he says, if anyone attacks me, I'm sending Scud missiles to Israel. And by doing that, he made a good friend with himself, with Arafat. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but basically, he goes and he makes this threat. And his thought was that if he does that threat, all the Arab countries won't fight him. He's fighting Israel. They will be his friend. And he makes this threat against Israel, which was not in the war at all, and Israel didn't want to get involved in the war. So at some point, the war only lasted for a few days before they were beaten. But at some point, he sends rockets to Israel, and these were big rockets. They took 300 buildings. If any of those, when those rockets landed, around 300 buildings were affected. And we were talking about a massive, and then eventually he threatened to send chemical bombs, which he actually used in Kuwait, and he threatened to use them to send those against Israel as well. And he didn't manage, but at the time it was a great fear in 91, and all the Jews in Israel were wearing chemical masks. They were giving them out, the government was giving out, and they couldn't fight back. They had to keep quiet, they didn't want to get involved in the war. So everything was done with all this threat, and everyone was wearing these masks, gas masks. Anyway, so can you imagine they're getting divorced, and suddenly, right next to their house is a rocket that lands. And it hits right near to where his wife and his kids are right there. And they are terrified. She's alone with her 3 kids. And this huge rocket lands right somewhere near Tel Aviv. That was when it really hit. And they were so scared. So the kids called their father. They told him, we really need you. We're so scared. We can't do this. And as they tell him that, new sirens are going off because they are being threatened to get chemical bombs also being sent from Iraq, which didn't succeed. It's during these 6 days. He doesn't listen to the emergency announcements or whatever, that you have to stay indoors. He gets in his car and he goes running to the house where his kids are and his wife that he's planning to divorce. He walks in there, his kids hug him. He doesn't say a word to his wife. Everyone understands why he's there. And he says, I didn't need a therapist. I didn't need any professionals, nothing. Everything changed for the better from then on. And it gets better or crazier. No conversation of divorce ever again. His kids started to gain confidence that their father's around. And they even decided with the family, because they had a big home, to create a camp for their kids. A small little camp for their kids and for other kids in the area that are not now going to school. After the war, his job that he had, that he was so busy with, he loses his job. They tell him, there's no money in the country, our job is bankrupt, you've got no job. So he loses his job, he scrambles around, and he creates his own business. He starts hiring employees, and he works for himself, and he has another 2 children with his wife. And eventually he becomes a role model in marriage therapy and helps people in their marriage also, him and his wife. One Friday, many years later, his wife, with more kids, she lights the Shabbat candles, and as soon as she finishes lighting, she bursts out crying and runs to her room. And he runs after her. And he says to her, what's going on? Why are you crying? And she says to him, I'm just looking at the kids. I'm looking at you. And it just hit me how much I could have lost. How much we could have lost. We could have lost all of this. But because we came back together, we're here again. And he says like this, it took the messenger of this evil Saddam Hussein to save our marriage. The war, he says, reminds him of what truly matters in life. He didn't expand his business anymore because he knew it would be at the expense of his family. And 30 years later, he says the story about himself. All of my kids are now married and they all work for me, for my company. It's a crazy story. And he says like this, the story doesn't end. COVID-19 hits and his wife couldn't breathe. She got it. She was one of the first people in Israel to get it. And she gets taken into the hospital and she could not breathe. And he remembers how terrifying, couldn't even be in contact with her because she was under whatever it was, ventilation or whatever they put her on. And she couldn't even speak to him. And they didn't know what's going on. There was no communication with the hospital. And they were all praying, and he was crying. And he says, I'm not the type that cries. Even when my wife cried, when she realized how much she could have lost, I didn't cry. But here, I started to cry. I realized I was alone, and for many months, I was alone. And he was really forced to think how much he could have lost in that moment. His wife came back, but he learned what could have happened in his later life if he wouldn't have gone back to that home. Where would he be? Would he be alone? Would they be alone? Would he have neglected them? We grow up thinking that many problems are out there, and I, myself, I'm perfect. That's what they teach us. The government's the problem, the school's the problem, everyone's the problem. You're fine, but do you know what's the problem? Everyone else. Judaism, we got the Torah, and do you know what we got also? The message that it's up to us to perfect our own world. It's up to me. It takes humility, inner growth. I can't change the people out there, but I can change myself. And when I change myself, that's the declaration of receiving the Torah. The Torah wasn't given on the day that the world was created. 26 generations, which adds up to the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is 26. 26 generations later, the Torah was given to remind the world, in the chaos that it was, it's not, the problems out there are not the same as the problems in here. And they are not what you can fix, but you can fix what's in here. You can fix your inner self. You can't change the world. And that's what this man did. He managed to overcome through sometimes challenges, but those challenges woke him up. I actually saw how many couples, we talk about all the problems that are happening in Israel, how many couples got together, back together because of the war that broke out. Now, in this war also. We don't hear of the good things. You know, we love exciting bad news, but we don't, the news sites doesn't like good news. Like, we don't hear about all the babies that were born today. You know, we only hear the bad stuff. So there's a lot of good things that can happen also in our challenges. And that's what the Torah demonstrates. Anyway, my point is, like this man, he didn't realize that his wife and his children, everything can come together. He didn't realize what a blessing he has in his own life, but he got pulled away with his work, and he forgot. And his wife also didn't appreciate him for who he was. Sometimes, just like this story, we as Jews think, oh, I'm Jewish, but we don't realize what we've got. We don't realize how awesome of a people we are, how amazing it is to be a Jew, and we have real history. Why do you deserve to be in the land of Israel, they ask me? Because the Bible says so. Does anyone use that as an argument? No. Do you know why? Because we're shy of our Judaism. We'll use every other argument, but we won't use the fact that the Bible, which they believe in, says so. The whole story of the Torah is the Jews from Abraham literally getting to the land of Israel. Then Moses dies. The whole story is about getting to the land of Israel and serving Hashem in the land of Israel. So why can't I have pride as a Jew that not only I got the Torah, that's one thing, but it's also an awesome Torah. It's an awesome Judaism. It's an awesome people. And that's what we need to walk around with pride, real pride. That's the story of this guy. He realized that his wife is really amazing, and his relationship is amazing. And sometimes it takes challenges to realize that. Anyway, my blessing is that we should be able to see the good in Judaism, be proud as Jews, not just to say I'm Jewish, but I'm proudly Jewish. I will wear my kippah tall and strong. I flew around, nothing's going to stop me, with my kippah and in extra strong, and kudos to anyone else who does it with their necklace or whatever it is. But for me, I'm a Jew, and I'm going to look like a Jew. I'm not going to be afraid, and if they don't like it, then too bad. We are here, and in fact, You yourself, your own religion believes in me. Your religion doesn't exist without the Jewish people. And if they say, we are not the real Jews, send them to me because we have books and history and archaeology and teachings from every generation. We don't just study stuff. I spoke tonight about different stories and different rabbis from in the span of about 3,000 years. We have a rabbi for each generation. How can you argue with that? Each generation had many educators and books that can't be burned because there's so many of them that if you burn half, there's another half. It's impossible to hide how much literature. They call us the people of the book. It's an amazing thing, and each generation has so many educators for that generation, and back until Moses. So we are, and archaeology also proves that we are the Jewish people. But they like to skew things in their own way, and we will just carry on with who we are because we are like the bush that never burns. We're Moses' thorn bush that no fire can't consume it, no matter how much they try. We will be here forever, and we just need to be proud. Okay, thank you for listening. Appreciate it.